There are 6 levels of sales that every business must master, with level 5 leading to the best results of all. But unfortunately, most business owners are stuck with the first few levels of thinking and they never reach the top levels of business. This in turn causes a lot of stress, wasted time, and makes things unnecessarily more difficult. If you simply learn how to think at the right level, you can achieve business success you've never dreamed of. And you can trust me because I'm certainly not a genius, and I've seen this process work with countless business owners that have gone through my trainings and curriculums. This video will show you what level you tend to operate at and how to level up so you can become a true sales master, which takes us into level 1, the memorization phase. This involves a lot of scripting and writing and can feel very repetitive. Think back to when you were in school in history class and you had to memorize random facts like what are the 7 continents in the world, what happened in World War II, or even learning a foreign language by using flashcards. This is how most of us studied pretty much up until high school, and it's probably a main reason that you started to hate learning. Really, this level is just regurgitating information that you've already heard from someone else. In sales, most will simply take a script or listen to recorded sales calls from someone else and try to replicate it into their own sales. The issue here is that every sales encounter is different, so trying to memorize what to do would be like trying to memorize 20 different languages. Ironically, even though this first level is all about memorization, it's actually not a very good way to hold on to and retain the things that you learn. In fact, a better way is to understand where you're comprehending what you are learning versus just repeatedly trying to cram information into your brain. On this level, our intentions really matter. You could have 2 people doing exactly the same technique, and on the outside, it would look very similar. But if you were to stop and ask, hey, how are you trying to learn? They might say, I'm just trying to memorize this sales script. But the guy at level 1 is just trying to cram the information into their head who's stuck at the memorization phase, while person number 2 is trying to understand the script and comprehend why it was written the way it was written. This is level 2 thinking, understanding, which allows us to start explaining what we are learning. This will now allow us to answer questions that require us to explain our understanding of a concept or a process. This is usually what sales managers are doing with their teams when they are trying to train them on sales processes and procedures. Ultimately, memorization and understanding is simply not enough in sales to be potent. We need to be able to solve actual problems, which moves us into application on level 3. Now, there are a lot of ways that you can apply your knowledge to solve problems in sales. You have what I call a simple problem and a complex problem. A simple problem in sales should be able to be solved by a preset framework. So think of the layout of a call where you have the intro, pre-frame, discovery, the pitch, the close, and even the objection handling. A simple sales problem would more than likely be able to be solved by simply applying one of these frameworks. But if you have a more complex problem, it won't be as simple as just applying a framework or formula, and there might be some deeper level thinking involved, which takes us into a whole new level of analysis. Now, people at this level tend to excel far more than the average person, but these types of thinkers are not very common. The reason for this is level 4 thinking is all about comparing and contrasting. It's about looking for similarities and differences. This is the first level where we aren't just looking at information by itself, but we're looking at it in relation to another piece of information. For example, you might compare 2 different sales scripts or 2 different closing techniques. You could make tables or Venn diagrams. You could even look at sales call summaries and compare the 2 in relation to one another. Ultimately, any technique or strategy can be effective here as long as it forces you to compare and contrast one thing against the other. Now, what's interesting to note about this level is that it is much harder to think at this level in terms of effort, which is why level 4 thinkers are not nearly as common. When you make the jump from level 3 to level 4, you are going to notice a significant difference in terms of energy and results. You are thinking longer and deeper on this level than any of the previous ones, which is a good thing because it means that your brain is forming stronger memories and deeper knowledge, although it may feel like you've gotten slower. In fact, because of this, some people feel like they are doing things wrong. So although most sales reps can think at this level, they choose not to because it feels harder than working at level 1, 2, or 3. And sadly, because of this, most sales professionals never improve from this point because they perceive the extra energy and effort they're having to expend as a bad thing. So they go back down to one of the lower levels and never actually improve their thinking skills. And this phenomenon continues as we continue to move up to the higher levels. But the good news is, if you can learn how to think on higher level in sales, you will become one of the top earners simply by thinking differently than everyone else. But level 5 is where the exponential results really start to stack up. At the previous level, we were analyzing, comparing, and contrasting, looking for similarities and differences. At level 5, we are asking the important question, which is, so what? What does it matter? Who cares? Why is it important? We are now learning how to evaluate and prioritize. It's not enough to just compare and contrast. Now we have to think deeper and justify the knowledge. You'll know you are doing this correctly when you are going back and forth between materials trying to answer the question of, why does this matter? How does this fit in with everything else? Why should I care? You may find yourself jumping between notes, sales scripts, YouTube videos, and even Google search. This is a sign that you are now operating at level 5. This is the type of thinking you have to go through if you're an executive, a sales manager, or a teacher. You can't just teach things to people without diving deeper into why you're teaching them what you're teaching them. That's why there's a saying that a true master of something can teach it to someone else, because it takes a very high level of thinking. But keep in mind, it's not as much about the technique you're using as much as what's actually happening inside your brain. So for example, at level 5, you could be using mind maps, answering questions, or creating summaries. But you could be using all of those techniques and still not truly be at level 5 if you're not thinking about things in the right way. Anyone can easily just make a mind map by connecting a bunch of lines and arrows together between words, but that's not truly level 5 thinking. Level 5 would be where you are doing the same activity, but you are critically thinking and evaluating which lines and relationships are more important than other possible relationships, and you're thinking, what's the best way I can group these thoughts or ideas together? So although level 4 and 5 can look similar, how you go about processing those thoughts and ideas determine which actual level you're on. I want you to notice that the less effort or the more mundane the thinking process, usually the less learning is taking place. If you truly want to become a millionaire, you need to at least get to level 5. Now, a step above that is level 6, which is all about breaking down new and novel information from what you already know. So for example, let's say you're on a sales call and someone asks a question that you don't quite know the answer to at that time for whatever reason. You would want to take that knowledge that you do know and are sure about and create a potential answer or solution to the question based on what you already know, or as I said previously, the hypothesis. Now in sales, you never will really be assessed at this level for very long unless maybe you're new to a company and don't know everything there is to know about the product or the sales process. Most individuals tested at this level are going to be professors or scientists exploring new possibilities and explanations to big problems like how to cure cancer or other diseases. If you can even just perform at level 5 consistently, you will be in the top 1% of people and at the top of your game.